Have you ever felt ignored by God in moments when you needed Him the most? Have you ever felt you were screaming out your lungs, saying all the prayers you could, but still heaven was unresponsive? Sometimes God's silence feels louder than a scream. But what if the ache, the memory, and even the unanswered questions are leading us back to something we forgot we needed? In chapter 2 of When the Heaven is Silent, Leah faces the one thing she's been avoiding, Micah's journal, and what she finds inside cuts deeper than grief. It reawakens the parts of her that dared to hope. This story is aimed to encourage you that even in the midst of the storm, God is still present. Even when it feels as though heaven is silent, God still sees and hears you. The rain had stopped by morning, but Leah hadn't moved. She sat cross-legged on the floor of the canvas shelter, her back leaning against the wooden support beam. The lioness, now sleeping with her cub, tucked safely beneath her flank, breathed in soft rhythms beside her. The shelter smelled of wet earth, dried blood, and something else like the ghost of fire after a storm. A broken radio crackled in the corner, lifeless. Wind nudged through the broken windows, carrying with it the scent of mud and eucalyptus. Leah's fingers were still trembling. She hadn't slept. She couldn't stop thinking about that moment, the cub's first breath, the lioness's gaze locking with hers, the eerie timing of it all. It didn't feel ordinary. It felt orchestrated. But she shook her head hard, shutting her eyes for a second. No, don't do that. Don't go spiritual. Still, something had shifted. She sighed and stood. Her boots squelched in the mud as she walked across the shelter grounds toward the rust-stained Toyota pickup, the one that had once belonged to her brother, Micah. The tire of the trunk sat half-sunken in wet soil, its side mirror hanging limp. She opened the door, dropped into the driver's seat, and stared out across the drenched, desolate land. The journal was already in her hand. She hadn't meant to bring it. She didn't even remember picking it up before walking to the shelter last night. But now it was there, waiting. She hesitated for a long moment before flipping it open to a random page. A faded ink entry stared back at her.
Leah said something strange today. She said maybe God only talks when everything else is silent. I don't know. I just know I believe her more than I believe anyone.
She froze. She didn't remember saying that. Or did she? A flicker surfaced a vague memory. A late evening conversation under the tree in their backyard. Micah had been pacing. She'd been scribbling in a notebook. She remembered saying something in passing, something bitter but honest. She never thought he'd held on to it. She read it again, then again. The page was dated 3 days before he died. Her throat tightened. Her fingers pressed into the paper like it might bleed answers. She turned the page, another entry.
I'm starting to think silence isn't the absence of God. Maybe it's the beginning of Him.
Leah slammed the journal shut. No, she muttered. This doesn't mean anything. You were just writing things. Just scribbles. Random thoughts. But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. Something had pierced her. A thread pulled tight between what she'd lost and what she couldn't forget. Her mind flashed unbidden to that day. The sound of beeping machines. Micah's body on the hospital bed, unmoving after the ambulance ride. The red pulse of the electrocardiography machine flatlining. Her own voice screaming his name. Micah! 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 Until her throat burned. And all the while, silence. No answer. No sign. Not even the whisper of God. Leah pushed out of the truck, stumbling slightly as her boots sank into the wet earth. She walked angrily toward the open desert ridge that stretched behind the shelter. The sun was rising now, thin, gold, and almost too gentle for the weight she carried. When she reached the edge of the cliff, she dropped to her knees. Dust clung to her legs. "Why did you leave?" she whispered. Her voice cracked and raw. She clenched the journal. Why him and not me? A bird circled above her, wings catching the early light. Somewhere behind her, the lioness let out a soft, low roar like an echo, like a response. Her hands shook as she flipped forward to the final entry.
Leah always thinks she's the strong one, but she's the one who holds too much. If anything happens to me, I hope she remembers what she told me once. God isn't afraid of our silence. He waits there. He always waits.
She dropped the journal. Tears came fast, sharp, unstoppable, like a canyon wall cracking under pressure. She didn't try to stop them. She wept until the silence was full, until it felt, strangely, like someone was listening. When was the last time you asked God a hard question? Write it down. Let it breathe. He can take it. Just like Leah, you may have been holding on to a lot of grief and pain of not receiving an answer from God when you needed him the most. But most times his response doesn't come in the way and time we expect it. But he is definitely present with you even though you can't feel him yet. When the tears are heavy and the ache of it painful, let it out. He won't let our tears fall and go to waste. He will definitely respond. If this story has blessed you, do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment so that YouTube can recommend it to someone else that it will also bring comfort to. Watch out for Chapter 3 coming up next. The Voice in the Silence. Someone sends Leah an anonymous recording, quoting Micah's final journal entry word for word. Who sent it? And how did they know? Brought to you by Quiet Bloom.